Hey everybody, welcome back. It was like West Point, and he's a graduate of West Point, and Alan B. Shepard is a graduate of the Naval Academy. So after I went to space camp, I petitioned in my heart that I would do everything I could to become an astronaut. So I applied to go to West Point, and I got accepted. And I ended up entering West Point in 1992 was my first year as a plebe there. And so I went through 4 years there. I jumped out of airplanes. I went through airborne training. And I also was deployed to Haiti. And the summer of 1995, I was on a mission there, a training mission through Fort Bragg, North Carolina with the 82nd Airborne Division. I was sent to Haiti as part of just, a finance operation. And so when I first enlisted, I guess I enlisted in the military for a year, I received a bunch of vaccinations. And it was interesting because I got really sick just from that first series of vaccinations. I remember my body really going through some serious trauma. I started having massive muscle spasms, massive pain all throughout my body. And this was during basic training. So I went, basically to sick call one morning, and I said, look, I can barely move. My back is hurting, and I'm in basic training right now. I know that we're really tired and we're stressed out, but this isn't like me to be almost feeling like my back was so spazzed out that doing a push-up was just excruciating. And this is right after I went through in processing, going through all the vaccines and things. I noticed a reaction immediately. And they don't just give you onesie, twosie shots, okay? It is like you line up, you put your sleeves up, and you go through this machine, like I would like to call it just kind of like this cattle line. You all line up, you go through this machine, you roll both of your arm sleeves, and you get shots in both arms, like massive shots in both arms. And they use like this air pressure type of gun. And I just remember like being in so much pain after that. Like it wasn't just your typical, oh, that hurts. It was like, oh my God, my back is spazzing so bad right now and I'm in so much pain. Imagine just like 100 knots, really, really painful knots in your back. And that's what it felt like. So I went to, sick call, and the doctor on call was like, oh, you need to buck up, soldier, get it together. This isn't your cakewalk. He's basically giving me the whole spiel like, this is the Army now, girl. Wake up. You're going to West Point, so you better get it together. And this was in the actual summer of 1991 when I enlisted for 1 year. And then I went to West Point in 92. I was accepted in 92. So to make a long story short, I had some serious reactions, and it took me, a good 3 months to really get over that. I was able to kind of limp my way through it. I was a really good runner in high school. I was in really good shape. I ran cross country. I went to state 3 years in a row. I ran varsity track for 4 years. So I think just the fact that I was in such good shape, I was able to kind of muscle my way through it. And then I was kind of okay, but I noticed after those vaccines, I got really allergic to a lot of different foods. And I also had some crazy things happening with my skin, my feet specifically. Like I never had problems with any kind of, skin infections or things like that, but my feet were taking a beating and I couldn't understand like what the heck happened. And so that was kind of interesting. And then I got accepted to West Point. And then like I was saying, in 1995, I got deployed to Haiti and they did not have my shot records. So the Army, being as great as they are, decided, hey, we don't have your shot records. Why don't we just give them all to you again? Don't worry. If one's good, multiple are good. And, you can never have too many vaccines, of course. So I got a big dose of about 12 different vaccines that day, including yellow fever, some other nefarious ones. I got, what was that other one I got? Just crazy, MMR again. I got the flu shot. I got what was a meningococcal vaccine. I have a list of all the vaccines they gave me in one day. And as I'm going through this and processing again of getting all my vaccines just so I could go to Haiti, on the last shot they gave me, I literally passed out. And all I remember is, just getting so many vaccines at once. Like, my body started getting really ill. And I started feeling very lightheaded and just not myself and delirious and dizzy, to the point where my body just had enough and it passed out. And the next thing I remember is, my CO, basically, she went through it with me to get me ready to go on my mission to Haiti. She was sitting there with the medics and she's like, okay, we're going to put you on sick call. You need to go back to your barracks and sleep this off. So I got the rest of the day off, and, I slept for like 15, 20 hours that night. And it was really scary because I never really slept that long in my life, unless, I'd stayed up the night before all night. But I remember being extremely exhausted, lethargic, having tremendous problems after that, waking up with excruciating pain in my joints. And I ended up having, I guess the joint pain kind of started a little bit prior to that, but I'm talking excruciating pain after that. So I ended up having to go to Walter Reed and go through all this diagnosis, only to come up with the scenario, hey, guess what? We have good news and we have bad news for you. The good news is you get to graduate. You're going to be a graduate of West Point. The bad news is we are going to give you a medical discharge because you have a very serious disease called lupus. So that was a really hard wake-up call for me. I went from being this incredible athlete to barely being able to brush my hair, and just because of the pain. And I ended up having tremendous inflammation all over my body, which caused my body to gain a lot of weight. A lot of times when people are heavy, people say, oh, you're heavy, you need to lose weight. The truth is most people are just inflamed with a tremendous amount of inflammation in their body. And what happens when you have inflammation is that the body fills up with water. I like to kind of think of it as a bee sting, right? When you get stung by a bee, what happens is that the body swells up, right? The body sends a bunch of water to try to neutralize that poison so that it can be eliminated through the proper eliminative channels. And so the same thing kind of happens when your body is filled with a lot of inflammation and the body fills up with water, and people thinking, oh, you're really heavy. No, I think most people aren't heavy. They're mostly filled with a bunch of inflammation, and that can happen on different levels. The types of food that you're eating can cause inflammation, inflammatory response. And, over time, that can definitely cause the body to swell. So anyway, so that's what happened with me. And I remember, that was 1996 when I got medically discharged with a really serious disease. And I started chasing after that diagnosis. I went from doctor to doctor to doctor with no help. No doctor could freaking help me. I was so sick. And I was really depressed. Here I'd gone from being this really good athlete to, this heavy, unhappy, very sad person with a long row to hoe, so to speak. I had a lot of uphill climbing to do to try to get better. And so every doctor I went to really couldn't help me. Back then they didn't know what lupus was. We can't really help you. We don't know what to do. Just take this anti-inflammatory drug. Take the steroid, take this, that, the other thing. And it really screwed up my gut. Also prior to that, I'd been taking a lot of antibiotics. So my gut was already messed up. And then to add insult to injury, I was taking all this medication that was not helping me at all. And, I was really sad. And so I basically ran out of my own answers. I fell flat on my face and I cried out to God and said, please, would you show me how to get better? Because I was so sick. I was in so much pain. I really didn't know where to go. And it is really a crippling thing to not know what to do when you don't feel so good. And so I remember just like crying out to God and asking him to show me how to get better, because man had kind of failed me. The doctors had failed me. My government had failed me. I didn't know where to turn other than the divine. And so when I prayed to God, I said, please, would you show me truth? Would you show me how to get better? I don't know what to do. And I ran out of my own answers. And I think when that happens, you know, there's a saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. And that's exactly what happened. I was so ready. I was ready to get better. I was ready for the teacher to arrive, to show me what to do, because I'd tried my own things and it didn't work. And so God started bringing people into my life. One very particular person was Dr. Malcolmus from Hallelujah Acres that said, you got to go back to the garden. You know, man's original diet is a garden-based diet. And of course, I grew up eating garbage food, not garden food. I ate a lot of foods that were grown, I shouldn't say grown, processed in a plant, as opposed to eating plant-based foods. So that was interesting. And I remember just pounding down this book. It was called A Patient Heal Thyself by Richard Anderson. And it changed my life. It talked about cleansing your body, putting whole foods in your body, taking herbs, making sure you clean out the gut, clean out the colon. Places that, you know, at that time, you didn't hear this message. And this was back in, what year is this? Probably 2000. I always joke that I became a plant-based vegan before we could even pronounce quinoa. You know, quinoa was like, what the heck is that? What is quinoa? You know, quinoa? What is that? So that's kind of when I started, before quinoa became a very popular food to eat. And I noticed something. I did this for 30 days, and I noticed something remarkable. After 30 days, I had something called hope. A lot of my despair, depression just went away. I was going off all my medications, weaning off massively intense medications, and I didn't need them anymore. And I don't recommend people just, you know, stop your medications cold turkey. You know, that's not something I recommend. And by the way, these are my views. I'm not a doctor. I can't give you advice, but this is what I did to get well. I am a holistic health practitioner, and one day I hope I can become a naturopathic doctor. But it's so expensive to go through that school. It's ridiculous to try to, you know, graduate as a naturopath. And then it's just crazy how they make it nowadays. It's, you know, all these hoops you have to jump through. A really good show is going to be Who Are They? And please listen to them. Listen to that show on the 3rd hour, because John Lord really breaks that down. Who are they? You know, we always talk about them. And the medical industry is part of that. The medical industry is part of who are they, and this massive cabal to kind of hurt humanity. So that's my opinion. You know, I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I am just speaking from my own experiences. So anyway, to make a long story short, that was my great awakening. Once I started getting better, I started digging down more rabbit holes about vaccines and, you know, what they actually do to the body and how it hurt me. You know, me specifically. And, you know, I've had doctors tell me straight up, yeah, that's why you got lupus. You got inundated with the immune system, overextended the immune system, and the body just couldn't take it. So anyway, yeah, so that's the story about that. The other thing I want to do is talk about 5G. We're going to dive into that topic. I'm writing my station manager right now. A 1st hour show. Okay, so let's talk about the rest of this show, how it's going to be structured. So I want to talk about this 5G, what's happening with that. But before we get there, I want to go back to this January, Janus, the two-headed god. Janus has two faces. Yes, Janus is the two-faced god. And let's just give you a little history about that. So, in the mythology of ancient Rome, I'm reading this article called Janus, the Two-Faced God. And it's written by Patty Wigington. It was updated October 8th, 2017. And I've been studying about this pagan calendar that's been going around. That was another wake-up call for me. God basically showed me, hey girl, you want to get to know me, get to know my days, get to know my calendar, get to know the book, get to know my book. So I really started pounding down the Bible and learning about all the paganism, all of the roots of evil really start in the Bible. If you want to know basically your blueprint for life, read the Bible, read the creation account. It tells you how to eat. It tells you how God set up our life in the garden, how the calendar got established, right? How the earth got established. I mean, it goes through all of it. The basic knowledge of good and evil. How did evil come about? All these questions can be answered in the Bible. So let me just read you this brief article. Excuse me. Okay, so Janus, the two-faced god. In the mythology of ancient Rome, Janus was the god of new beginnings. He was associated with doors and gates and the first steps of a journey. The month of January, of course, falling at the beginning of the new year, is believed to be named in his honor, although some scholars say it's in fact named for Juno. Janus is often invoked together with Jupiter and is considered a fairly high-ranking god in the Roman pantheon. Although nearly all of the Roman gods had Greek counterparts, because there was significant religious and cultural overlap, Janus, unusual in that he had no Greek equivalent. It's possible that he evolved from an early aristocratian deity. All right, but it's safe to say that Janus is uniquely Roman. So the god of gates and doors, this is where we get this idea of looking back in time and, reflecting, this is my own commentary, by the way, reflecting on the year in the past and then, of course, looking forward to the future. What are we going to do? What's our New Year's resolution? I'm going to get in shape this year. I'm going to give up coffee. I'm going to give up chocolate. I'm going to quit smoking, right? We always have these New Year's resolutions, and I want you to understand where that comes from. That comes from Janus, the two-headed god. We are so embedded in mythology, in pagan Romanism. Pagan gods, guys. Pagan gods infiltrate us. We are surrounded by them by the days of the week, by the months on the calendar, by just so much influence of the Romans. I can't even begin to go there, but I just want to give you a quick overview of this. So, all right, looking at my time, boy, almost half the hour's gone. Okay, so the god of gates and doors. In most portrayals, Janus is depicted as having two faces, looking in opposite directions. In one legend, Saturn bestows upon him the ability to see both the past and the future. In the early days of Rome, the city founder Romulus and his men kidnapped the women of Sabine, and the men of Sabine attacked Rome in retaliation. The daughter of a city guard betrayed her fellow Romans and allowed the Sabines into the city. When they attempted to climb the Capitoline Hill, Janus made a hot spring erupt, forcing the Sabines to retreat. In the city of Rome, a temple known as, oh boy, guys, I'm going to butcher this, Aeneas Germanus was erected in Janus's honor and consecrated in 260 BCE after the Battle of Mylae. During periods of war, the gates were left open and sacrifices were held inside, along with the auguries to predict the result of military actions. It is said that the gates of the temple were only closed in times of peace, which didn't happen very often for the Romans. In fact, it was later claimed by Christian clerics that the gates of the Aeneas Geminius, sorry guys, first closed at the moment that Jesus was born. As a god of change and the transition from past to present to future, Janus is considered a deity of the time. In some areas, he was honored at periods of agricultural transition, specifically at the beginnings of the planting season and the reaping time. In addition, he might be called upon during periods of major life changes, such as at weddings and funerals, as well as births and coming of age of young men. In other words, he is the guardian of space and time between. In Fasti, Ovid wrote, "Omens are in the beginnings. Your turn, your fearful ears to the first sound at the augur decides on the grounds of the first board he has seen. The doors of the temples are open as well as the ears of the gods, and the words have weight." So it's going on to say that because of his ability to see both back and forward, Janus is associated with powers of prophecy, in addition to gates and doors. He is sometimes connected with the sun and moon in his aspect as a dual-headed god. Okay, so this is really important because, we're talking about the months, the month of January. So let me just finish with this article. Again, it's on thoughtco.com. You can look up Janus, the two-faced god. But let me just read this to you because this is really, really important. There are a number of ways you can call upon Janus for assistance in magical workings and rituals. In his role as a keeper of doors and gates, consider asking for his assistance when you're embarking on a new journey or holding a new beginnings ritual. Because Janus also looks behind him, you can petition him for help in shedding the unnecessary baggage of the past, such as trying to eliminate a bad habit from your life. Okay, guys? Do you understand what's happening here? This New Year's resolution, I'm going to cut out chocolate, I'm going to cut out coffee, I'm going to cut out drinking, and I'm going to cut out smoking, stems from this pagan god. People use this. This is witchcraft stuff, all right? So when people wish you a happy new year in January, you can, in his role as a keeper of doors and gates. It's not a new year. It's not a year of new beginnings for anybody except for this magic stuff. All right, God's new year begins in the spring. All right, it is called the month of the Abib. And we know this because we are told in Genesis 12:2, this month, Abib, shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Abib is the Hebrew name for this month, and it means green ears of grain. It is the month in which the green ears of the grain appear. So this is really important stuff because God has a calendar. If we're trying to understand God's prophecies, right, we have to go to his calendar. If we want to understand the world, if we want to understand the enemy's prophecies, you can sure bet it's going to be on the pagan calendar. Okay, God's prophecies happen on his calendar. So get to know his calendar. Understand the Passover. Understand the first fruits. Understand the Day of Atonement, okay? Please, please, please go research this stuff for yourself. I'm not telling you lies. I just want you to be in truth. And so this is digging down the rabbit hole a little bit more. Okay. So, so let's talk a little bit more about that. You'll notice January, February, March, April, May. These are all pagan gods. Just like the solar system, okay? Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and, all these Neptune. These are all pagan gods as well. And you can also see this on the actual days of the calendar. Monday, Moon Day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Saturn's Day, Sunday, Pagan Sun. So these are all pagan days, right? But one thing you notice about God is he numbers the days. He numbers the months of the calendar. So now let's talk about August, Augustus. You can see like the pagan ties there of their rulers, Augustus, Julius, all those things. Yes, so you want to understand the calendar. Okay, so I'm just writing my program manager here real quick. Not my program manager, but the station manager, Rick Lotek, is texting me. First hour. Okay. Yes, I'll have the first hour. Okay, so anyway, so let's talk about a little bit of September, October, November, and December. So September is actually the 7th month on the Hebrew calendar. It's roughly around September, October. October is the 8th month. Octagon, septa, 7, right? September is the 7th month. October is the 8th month. November is the 9th month. Nova. Deca, December is the 10th month. So January is not the first month, guys, just by going along with that. So you can see how there's these roots embedded in our calendar. Anyway, so I digress on that, but please look into it. I'm actually going to do a YouTube on that later, and talk about, the Sabbath and things like that, and all of the beautiful numbers in the Bible. How God uses these beautiful numbers to talk to us. Seventh being the Sabbath, the 7th day, and how we see the Sabbath all throughout time, and how He even has a 7th year. So going back to creation, always going back to creation, always going back to the Genesis account, that is our foundation for how the earth was created, how God set up the sun, moon, and stars inside the firmament, how He put us in a garden to eat the fruits, and then after sin, good and evil happened, what actually happened. It is indeed a rabbit hole, but we are almost running out of time, so I want to try to get to this 5G radiation, and then talk to you about the Paradise Fires. I may have to come back to that on another show, because the second hour, we're going to have John Lord, and we're going to talk about what is a conspiracy theorist. And
this is a Flat Earth News Brief brought to you by FENewsNet.com. When most people think about a bright star in outer space, they think of a hot plasma-filled sphere like our sun. It would be inconceivable for them to believe that a star like this could ever create water. But since stars are linked to the creation of life as we know it, wouldn't it make sense that both water and light come from the stars? Researchers at Herschel Space Observatory of the European Space Agency wanted to look deeper into this. They found a protostar in the southern constellation known as Perseus. It is believed that this protostar is only 100,000 years old or less, so it is very young for a star. Surrounding the protostar is a huge cloud of dust and gas, which is responsible for creating it. The observatory used an infrared instrument to detect the chemical elements of these clouds. They discovered that the clouds were made from oxygen atoms and hydrogen atoms. If you remember high school science class, then you will know that oxygen and hydrogen are the two chemical elements that make up water. And you can't have water without these two elements. So therefore, one can only conclude that the protostar must be producing water if oxygen and hydrogen are present. And this prompted the researchers to study those atoms and see which path they take. Sure enough, it was discovered that the protostar forms water. How is this possible? Aren't stars supposed to be like 180,000 degrees Celsius? According to the theory, protostars have a north pole and south pole just like planets. These are the coldest areas of the protostar, which are about 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. While this may seem hot to us, it is actually cold for a star. It is these low temperatures that allow protostars to rapidly shoot water droplets like a jet from their pole regions. But as the droplets reach space, the extremely hot gas cloud surrounding the protostar turns the water into gas. The gas keeps moving until it eventually gets far enough away from the cloud to where the temperature is cold again. Then the gas reverses itself and turns back into water. If you consider how all the protostars in the galaxy are probably doing this same thing, this explains how outer space is consumed with oceans of water. The protostars are just constantly jetting out water that turns to gas. If you consider how all the protostars in the galaxy are probably doing this same thing, this explains how outer space is consumed with oceans of water. The protostars are just constantly jetting out water that turns to gas and then turns into water again. All this water continues to fill up outer space and make it a bigger ocean of water. Of course, we still need to convince people here on Earth that space water exists in the first place. At least for now, there is a clear explanation as to where the water comes from. Of course, we still need to convince people here on Earth that space water exists in the first place. At least for now, there is a clear explanation as to where the water comes from. NASA might admit water molecules exist in space, but they won't admit that oceans of water exist there and that our entire flat plane is surrounded by it. If someone could just make a homemade rocket and travel past the exosphere, then they could discover this for themselves and a whole lot more. For more Flat Earth News Briefs, log on to FENewsNet.com, and I'm your host, Rick Lotek. Hey there, this is Flat Earth Radio Live, station production manager Rick Lotek. And I'm here to tell you about Flat Earth News Talk with Wes Stace. Only we've got him, only Flat Earth Radio Live. Join Wes Stace and Flat Earth News Talk Saturday and Sunday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and ending at 4, and then starting again at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and ending at 8 o'clock. Wes Stace with Flat Earth News Talk. Only here on Flat Earth Radio Live, The Ferret. You can catch us at FERLIVE.com. Flat Earth Radio Live. Flat Earth Expo Aotearoa, New Zealand, hosted in Auckland, April 27th and 28th, 2019. A jam-packed 2-day, 3-part event to showcase Flat Earth and related topics, such as the Antarctic Circle and lands beyond, NASA, scientism, religion exposed, the Matrix control, vaccinations, chemtrails, political globalism and the NWO, fake news and false education, astronomy untouched, weather modification, historical hoaxes, financial systems, what are UFOs and aliens, biblical cosmology, and much more. The 3 parts include Broaden Your Horizon, a VIP Flat Earthers dinner, and a Unity conference. For tickets and contact information, phone 021-028-93402 or email admin@fenzexpo.co.nz. Or you can write them at their address at P.O. Box 51010, Pakuranga, Auckland, New Zealand 2010. Or you can log on to their website at www.fenzexpo.co.nz. The 2019 Flat Earth New Zealand Expo, sponsored by FENZ Trust and FERLive.com.
UE 2019 is coming to Southern California, February 22nd and February 23rd, 2019. Speakers will be presenting on the hottest topics of the day. 9/11, was it an inside job? The moon landing, did we really go? Scientism, has science become another religion? CBD, what is Big Pharma hiding from us? Vaccines, are they safe or are they harming our children? And no Question Everything conference would be complete without the hottest topic on the internet today, what is the true shape of the Earth? The 2019 Question Everything conference is shaping up to be like no other conference conference of its kind. This will be the event that people will be talking about for years to come. So get your tickets for the event and the VIP luncheon right now at QE2019.com. Southern California, February 22nd and 23rd, 2019. For additional information, go to QE2019.com. QE2019.com.
And if you use promo code FEMG, you'll receive 25% off your ticket price right now. Sponsored by QE 2019 and FERLive.com. www.ferlive.com. Flat Earth Radio. Flat Earth
Radio that makes us see.
You may not find us on your TV because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by RADI.
Flat Earth Radio is a production of Flat Earth Media Group.
Asking these questions that no one ever asked before because we didn't even think about this. I think it's like God lifting the veil, you know? He's starting to show people, look, you want to believe this? It's a lie. People are asking questions and truth is going to prevail. It's like, yeah, the biggest problem is that we're not able to eliminate questions, so therefore we can't assimilate. And, you know, we're a constant. People are asking questions and truth is going to prevail.
Join your host, Shelley Lewis, every Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 7 o'clock Central, and 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis.
Down the Rabbit Hole with host Shelley Lewis. Only here on Flat Earth Radio Live. The Ferret.
Thank you for listening to Flat Earth Radio. 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 Thank you for listening to Flat Earth Radio.
Then, and that's going to blow your mind, guys. You are going to be so blown. Your mind is going to be blown. And then the third hour, I want to talk about who are they? What are we up against? These evil forces, who are they? You know, people use it all the time. So I want to talk about that. But 5G, as you know, it's coming. And for those of you who are not familiar with 5G technology, it is basically super fast download speeds. They're touting it for our cell phones. There's going to be these little towers everywhere. And what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our health? And you know all about me. I'm all about getting your power back. Getting your power, your freedom back. And we're just, you know, we're up against all this stuff that's happening. So 5G radiation dangers, and what are the reasons to be concerned, and then what can we do to actually fight it? So let's talk about this 5G. There's an article posted on, it's called electricsense.com, and it says 5G radiation dangers, 11 reasons to be concerned. This was posted May 12, 2017. And for those of you who don't know, it's already been rolling out. It is in Sacramento, 5G is in Sacramento. Different little cities that, like, such as Los Angeles, have it as well. And the article starts off by saying, like it or not, we are rapidly moving into the world of 5G, or fifth generation cellular communications. Why? Because frequency bandwidths used currently by cell phones and similar technologies are becoming saturated. So they're basically saying, hey guys, we're overloaded. You know, we can't give you good service. We need to upgrade. We need to have 5G. Oh, but by the way, we've never tested it. So guess what? We are the guinea pigs. And this always raises a high alert for me when something hasn't been tested. They want to roll it out and use me as a guinea pig. I don't think so. I want to know as much as possible about what they're doing so that we can get equipped. And I'll tell you, at first when I heard about 5G, I wasn't too worried about it. You know, I didn't want to get involved. I just thought, oh, it's not a big deal. But then as I started looking at this, started digging down the rabbit hole, I thought, it's not a big deal. But then as I started looking at this, agenda is. So who are they? Tune into hour 3 to find out who are they. Okay, so super fast download speeds. So what's going on here is that they're saying we're being saturated. Like it or not, we're moving rapidly into the world of 5G. We're being saturated and super fast download speeds. 5G promises to connect us in our homes, schools, workplaces, cities, parks, and open spaces to over 1 trillion objects around the world. It promises cars that drive themselves, washing machines that order their own washing powder and softener, plus, of course, super fast downloads and streaming. We're talking about smart things, guys. Remember smart meters? Remember the whole thing with the Paradise Fires and these smart meters? Yeah, so we always want to be leery of things that are smart. Smart technology, smart, don't get smart with me. Don't get sassy with me. We say that in a negatory way, but we also say it, you need to get smart. And I'm telling you, it's the whole language thing we're working on as well, but I digress. So let's keep going with this 5G. According to Fortune.com, 5G will support at least 100 billion devices and will be 10 to 100 times faster than current 4G technology. 4G was already about 10 times faster than 3G. It will bring download speeds up to 10 gigabytes per second. Yeah, that's a lot. This would let us have an entire building of people send each other data in close to no time, thus improving productivity. It's all about work, guys. It's all about getting work done. You got to work faster, smarter, make more money, have less time, all that stuff. Make sure you pay for your mortgage and your healthcare insurance, guys. We got to have faster, faster, faster. So what is 5G? 5G offers mind-blowing data capabilities, practically unrestricted call volumes, and near-infinite data broadcast. It does this by 5G using largely untapped bandwidth of the millimeter wave, mmW, which is between 300 gigahertz, between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz, as well as some lower and mid-range frequencies. And then they go through this table where they talk about 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, the technology, their weaknesses, blah, blah, blah. There are some other features of 5G you need to be aware of. Wireless cell antennas galore. Millimeter waves, mmWs, do not travel well through buildings as they tend to be absorbed by rain and plants. This interferes with the signal. Did you guys hear that? Millimeter waves do not travel well through buildings, and they tend to be absorbed by rain and plants. Isn't that interesting? This interferes with the signal. Added to this, high frequencies like the millimeter waves also must have a much shorter wavelength that can't travel far. To counter this 5G, we will utilize similar cell stations and the technology of beam forming that scramble, unscramble, and redirect packets of data on a no-interface path back to us. This could mean wireless antennas on every lamp post, utility pole, home, and business throughout entire neighborhoods, towns, and cities. Did you guys catch that? This could mean wireless antennas on every lamp post, utility pole, home, and business throughout entire neighborhoods, towns, and cities. Okay, so when I read that, I immediately think this is ridiculous. They're going to be spying on us, okay? And for those of you who call me a conspiracy theorist, please tune into show number 2 on the second hour. What is a conspiracy theorist? This is not This is not me making stuff up. This is me saying, look, guys, they're going to have this technology in every home, business, outside, utility poles, everywhere you go. This is scary, and I don't care. I'm not just this old curmudgeon that doesn't want technology. I'm saying this is scary technology. Forget about it. Forget about your privacy. Forget about your freedom. This is scary stuff, and so I don't want to just scare you. Of course, I'm going to give you guys solutions. That's what I do. But I need you to be aware of the dangers of this. I need you to really understand what's happening. Okay, MIMO miniature cell towers. Current 4G cell towers have about a dozen or so antenna ports to support all communication. The new smaller 5G cell towers, or bases, will be multiple input, multiple output, and carry about 100 ports. So we're basically going from about a dozen to 100 different ports. These towers will probably be about 4 feet tall as opposed to the usual 90 feet towers currently erected around us. So they're going to be closer to the ground. 4 feet tall is about the size of a small toddler. Okay. Actually, not a small toddler, about the size of a small child. All right, so cells will be available within a 100-meter range, and these smart antennas, did you catch that, guys? Smart antennas will be able to differentiate between various mixed-up signals, like radio waves and Wi-Fi signals, in the air and beam them back in an orderly fashion, so to speak. Low latency, high efficiency. 5G will break down data and will send it into smaller sizes to offer significantly reduced transmission times. Data will be sent with only a 1 millisecond delay instead of a 50 millisecond delay commonly found with 4G, so it's really fast. With communication this fast, it'll allow machines to talk to each other with practically no room for error. Did you hear that? Machines to talk to each other. As Marcus Weldon, the CTO of Alcatel-Lucent, comments, up until now, we've designed the networks for people and their needs, and now we're designing it for things. Okay, so let's talk about the dangers of things. And by the way, if you didn't catch that, guys, we're talking about this AI, artificial intelligence. This is the beginning of it, okay? I shouldn't say the beginning. This is really the manifestation of where we're at technologically speaking. Your dishwasher will be talking to your dryer, and your dryer could talk to your refrigerator. All these things can talk to each other, okay? This is really wicked. The dangers of 5G, 11 reasons to be concerned. The USA is currently leading the way on 5G. Oh, yay, I'm proud of the USA, guys. They're just leading the way. At June 2016 press conference, where the Federal Communications Commission's head Tom Wheeler announced the opening up of low, mid, and high spectrums. There was no mention of health effects whatsoever, but the dangers are real. Thousands of studies link low-level wireless radio frequency radiation exposures to a long list of adverse biological effects, including DNA single and double-strand breaks, oxidative damage, disruption of cell metabolism, increased blood-brain barrier permeability. This is really freaky. Melatonin reduction. Okay, and just a side note, if you aren't making melatonin, that increases your risk of cancer, guys. Disruption of brain glucose metabolism, which means you're not going to be able to think. The brain needs sugar, and generations of stress proteins. Let's also not forget that in 2011, the World Health Organization classified radio frequency radiation as a possible 2B carcinogen, which basically increases your risk for brain cancer, guys. More recently, the 25 million National Toxicology Program concluded that radio frequency radiation of the type of currently being used by cell phones can cause cancer. But where does 5G fit into all of this? Given that 5G is set to utilize frequencies above and below existing frequency bands, 5G sits in the middle of all of this. But the tendency, it varies from country to country for 5G, is to utilize higher frequency bands, which brings its own particular concerns. Here is my review of the studies done to date. 11 reasons to be concerned. Number 1, a denser soup of smog. Okay, so we're going to be bombarded by high frequencies at low short-range intensities, creating a yet more complicated, denser soup of electrosmog. All right, so number 2, the effects on the skin. The biggest concern is how these new wavelengths will affect the skin. The human body has between 2 million to 4 million sweat ducts. Dr. Ben Ashai of Hebrew University, Israel, explains that our sweat ducts act like an array of helical antennas when exposed to these wavelengths, meaning that we become more conductive. A recent New York study, which experimented with 60 gigahertz waves, stated that the analysis of penetration depth shows that more than 90% of the transmitted power is absorbed in the epidermis and dermis layer. So our skin, guys, our skin is going to be effective. The effects of MMWs, as studied by Dr. Yael Stein of Hebrew University, has said that also cause humans physical pain. Pain, guys, as our nociceptors flare up in recognition of the wave as damaging stimuli. So we're looking at possibilities of many skin diseases, cancers, physical pain. This is crazy of what 5G can bring to us, right? Burning pain. Number 3, effects on the eyes. In 1994, study found that low-level millimeter microwave radiation produced lens opacity in rats, which is linked to the production of cataracts. In experiments conducted by the Medical Research Institute of Kanazawa, boy, I'm really just pronouncing this horribly, I apologize, Medical University found that 60 gigahertz millimeter wave antennas can cause thermal injuries of varying types of levels. Now, don't forget, we're talking about between 30 and 300 gigahertz, okay? So this is just at 60. This is at 60 that this is happening to the skin and the eyes. A 2003 Chinese study has also found damage to the lens epithelial cells of rabbits after 8 hours of exposure to microwave radiation. And a 2009 study conducted by the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Pakistan concluded that EMFs emitted by mobile phone cause dearrangement of chicken embryo retinal differentiation. All right, number 4, effects on the heart. A 1992 Russian study found that frequencies in the range of 53 to 78 gigahertz, that which 5G proposes to use, guys, impacted the heart rate variability in rats. Another Russian study on frogs whose skin was exposed found heart rate changes or arrhythmias. Number 5, immune system effects. A 2002 Russian study examined the effects of 42 gigahertz, guys, microwave radiation exposure on the blood of healthy mice. It was concluded that the whole body exposure of healthy mice to low intensity EHR EMF has a profound effect on the indices of non-specific immunities. Number 6, effects on cell growth. A 2016 Armenian study observed MMWs at low intensity, mirroring the future environment brought about by 5G. They concluded on E. coli and other bacteria that the waves had depressed their growth as well as changing properties and activities of the cell. The concern is that it would do the same on human cells. Number 7, effects on bacteria resistance. Basically, guys, what it's saying is they say that this could actually change our resistance. Okay, so basically saying that antibiotics won't help us. You can read that again on electrosense.com. Number 8, effects on plant health. Think GMOs on steroids. The water that falls from the skies onto these plants will also be irradiated. A 2010 study on aspen seedlings showed that the exposure to radio frequencies led to the leaves showing necrosis symptoms. Okay, so this is serious stuff. I'm just right now I'm just kind of going over this quickly because we're running out of time. Number 9, effects on the atmosphere and depletion of fossil fuels. The effects on the ozone are thought to be worse than current day CFS exposure. Number 10, disruption of the natural ecosystem. It goes into just the studies of the EMF radiation on the birds and things like that. Number 11, most 5G studies are misleading. 5G will use pulsed millimeter waves to carry information. Okay, now this is incredible stuff. Because microwaves already tells us how pulsed waves have more profound biological effects on our body compared to non-pulsed waves. Previous previous studies, for instance, show how pulse rates of the frequencies led to gene toxicity and DNA strands. Okay, so this, this is important stuff. What do we need to do? Well, it's a call to action. We all need to rise up, guys. What can we do? I want to talk about the things you can do to protect yourself before. What are the good news? Take action. Understand EMFs and their behaviors. Protect yourself with an EMF shield to mark and protect you from hot spots. And you can look online for things that will help with your cell phones. Go online whenever possible. Limit your exposure. Use an anti-radiation headset or speaker mode while talking on your cell phone. Refuse to use 5G phones and devices. Full stop. And discourage those you know from doing so. Basically, get the word out, guys. Tell people to not use that. Refuse to buy anything smart appliances, smart heaters. Get that smart meter off of your house. I've been just preaching that forever. Get that off your house. If you want to know more, go to my YouTube channel, Supposedly Shelly, and watch what the firemen talked about, these smart meters, how they were melted off, okay? So get those things off your house. Get it off. Get it off. Pay extra money. I don't care what you have to do, but do not get a smart meter, please. All right, join the club. Join the club with people who also don't want smart meters. They don't want this 5G, and you guys get together and figure out strategies. Spread the word. Please share this article with everyone you know. This is important to do, guys. So like I said, you can get shielding. I've also always been talking about walking, grounding. Get your feet grounded. And you're not going to believe it, but the time is basically up. For the next 2 hours, we'll be talking with John Lord. We're going to talk about what is a conspiracy theorist, as well as who are they. And tune in next week, guys. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about my traffic ticket, how I beat it. I beat the cops in Denver. Yes, I did. I want to tell you exactly how I did it, and the strategy that I'm going to use when I go to Fresno to fight this traffic ticket again. So far I've got 2 that I've taken care of, and I have 1 more to go. 1 more to go. I can't wait to share with you how I did it. A shout out to Travis from Red Hen Radio. He is my definite partner who helped me beat this ticket. So I really appreciate you, Travis. And I'm going to talk about you next week on my show and Down the Rabbit Hole. So guys, tune in next hour. You're listening to FERlive.com. The Ferret. I'm your host, Shelly Lewis, Down the Rabbit Hole. Stay tuned for the next 2 hours. You're going to hear some incredible information from a very good friend and colleague of mine, John Lord, a retired fire captain. So anyway, thanks, guys. Love you. I will catch you next hour. Bye-bye. everybody. It's Shelley Lewis from Down the Rabbit Hole. I have an amazing guest this week. His name is Jon Lord. I'm going to give you a little background about him. And what we're going to talk about today is going to blow your mind because we are going to lay the foundation of what we all are trying to understand about our research. Okay, and we want to go into the history of what a conspiracy theorist is and lay the foundation of where it came from, where it is today, and where we're going with it. And Jon is an expert in this, but let me tell you a little bit about him. So he is basically a veteran, a hero. He enlisted in the Navy in November of 1974, and he was in through November of 1978 as a corpsman. He served with the 1st Marine Division during June of 77 through November of 78, where he received his training as a paramedic. After he was discharged, he worked for a private ambulance company as a paramedic in Concord for 2.5 years prior to getting hired with the City of Petaluma Fire Department in September of 1981. He earned his AS degree in fire technology and a bachelor's degree in business management, fire officer certification, and other associated certifications and qualifications. He retired as a captain/paramedic in December of 2008, and he has spent the last several years researching the truth. I am so honored to have this guest on my show today. Jon, can you hear me?
I can hear you really good, Shelley, and I'm equally honored to be being interviewed by you.
Oh, I'm so blessed that you came on my show. Jon, when I spoke with you, I was fascinated with just how much information you have and how well you can explain it to others to give us a foundation of backing out of the rabbit hole, as you said, to establishing what we believe about conspiracy theorists and how we've been coined with this term and how it has this backlash associated with it. Could you take it away and give us the overview story of what it means and how we can better understand it?
Well, you just left room for a really good segue, Shelley, because I want everybody who's listening to this to take about 10 or 15 seconds and to see what comes into their minds when they think about the words conspiracy theorist. Everybody got it? So everybody's, going to have some different thoughts about conspiring in secrecy is to control humanity. What I wanted to do with Shelley today is to break down.
He worked for a private ambulance company.
The source of those two words being laced together, where they came from and why, and talk about the psychology of how that has worked in favor of the deep state, in favor of they. Okay? So I'm going to walk you guys through all the history on that. And so people are going to have different things when they hear that conspiracy theorist pop into their heads. Oh, stuff like, crazy people, loony people. I don't know, Shelley, what popped into your head when you heard it?
Well, when I first heard conspiracy theorist, right, I was thinking of tinfoil hats.
Okay, I had that down in my notes. Tinfoil hat wearing people, these people that are delusional and trying to explain life, trying to explain the challenges of living in today's world by coming up with these elaborate conspiracies. Okay? So this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with. So there's probably some people that are listening to this broadcast where they may have had other words jump into their heads, like researcher, okay, or truth seeker. So those people that had those words jump into their head have broken through the conditioning. Copy that?
Agree, Jon.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so when I get called a conspiracy theorist, which I do on all the time, I correct people. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. There's no theory behind it. I'm a conspiracy researcher. Okay.
Love it.
So we've all been programmed. I mean, all of us, including myself, all of us have been heavily programmed through our entire lifetimes. And, what we're all struggling to do right now, in common, all of us, everybody that would be listening to this, I'm sure, we're trying to break through that programming and trying to find the truth. Because if people are still watching mainstream media news, if they haven't figured it out already, they're being fed a line of bullshit. And so the importance of breaking down the term conspiracy theorist is so that it doesn't have the same trigger that it used to have. Okay, with me so far?
It sounds good. So we're basically saying that because this conspiracy theorist has conjured up so many different names for people, we want to really define what it actually means so that we're all clear that it's not kook people, it's not people who are feeling like, the government is out to get them, which may very well be, but we're going to establish the foundation, right, John?
Right.
Okay.
So let's start off by talking about what is a conspiracy. Okay?
Sounds good.
We can look it up, and basically a conspiracy is when two or more people conspire together to commit a crime. That's basically it in a nutshell. That's the definition.
Wow.
Okay. So what's a theory? What's a theory?
Yeah, a theory is something that has not been based on facts per se, but it's something you're trying to test.
Yes, it's conjecture. It may be, logical conjecture, but as you stated, Shelley, it has not been proven.
Right.
So okay, so we've got two words there that are linked together, and we're going to talk a bunch more about this, the power of words, but so conspiracy, which is a crime. Understood?
Wow.
Conspiracy is a crime. Every state in the United States of America has state laws concerning conspiracy, and in the California Code, it's SB 901 is mainly where the verbiage and the laws surrounding conspiracy are found. But it's not just state, there's also federal laws against it.
Okay.
So if we reframe conspiracy to the definition of the word is two or more people conspiring to commit a crime, okay? And remove the word theory because there's no theory behind it. These people conspire together. They're very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll break down some examples for you. And when this whole thing got really going hot and heavy.
Okay.
But basically, we're talking over 100 years of history. And if you really want to take it way far back in time, we're talking thousands of years that these people have been conspiring in secrecy to control humanity. That really is their ultimate goal, is to control humanity, keep us in a state of slavery. So anyway, so we have state laws and federal laws against conspiracy, and the crime is punishable by imprisonment. And if the conspiracy is drastic enough, people can even be put to death.
Wow.
Okay, so we're talking serious stuff here. Okay? So, all right, so that being said, I want to talk about where the term came from. And so I have to walk back a little bit of time in here. I was 7 years old when JFK was killed, murdered. Okay?
Okay.
I was 7 years old. We were in school, and people kept coming into the classroom whispering to our teacher, and it was highly unusual for anybody to disturb the class setting like that. So somebody came in, whispered to her, and she looked pretty distraught. And then a little while later, I'm sure when it was official that JFK had been actually killed, they came back in the room again and whispered to her. Then they dismissed the entire school, gathered us in the church, and we had a short mass, and then we were released home. Okay, so at 7 years old, I had never seen an adult cry, including my parents. And all around me, all the adults were sobbing uncontrollably. And so then I'm like walking home from school thinking, wow, cool, 7-year-old mind, right? Cool, we got a day off.
Sure.
So, and all the people that I'm seeing on the streets are sobbing uncontrollably. And, I didn't know what the president was. I mean,
Sure.
7-year-old kid, right? So, I knew it was somebody important, but I had no idea what the gravity of what had just taken place happened. Okay?
Gotcha.
So, the JFK assassination is really a good marker. After my awakening is where I began my research, and I've read several books about the assassination that have dove down deeply into the conspiracy, not theory, the conspiracy that took place on that day. And some great investigative journalists like our late brother Jim Mars breaks it down, where he interviewed witnesses that the Warren Commission just did not interview because they were trying to bias the investigation and show the world that Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy as a lone shooter. And I'm going to break that down a little bit more too, because they can't have it, these crimes that they conspire against humanity, they can't have them looking like they're cooperating and working together on this stuff. So how many times have we seen the lone shooter, Shelley?
Right. I mean, that's just embedded in our brain. A lot.
Okay. How many times? Think about it. Lincoln, right?
Yep.
Lincoln's the first lone shooter in the theater, crazed assassin, right?
Right.
Okay. Then we have Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Martin Luther King. We have Robert Kennedy. And on and on and on and on, all the way up into modern day, with the Parkland shooter being another crazed lone shooter.
Wow.
Where the narrative and the evidence for the Parkland shooting does not fit the narrative that we're being fed by the mainstream media.
Gotcha.
So, and this is through witness testimony. Okay, so anyway, this lone shooter thing is a template that they keep reusing over time. And the reason they do that is because if they can pin the crime on somebody, then it absolves them from being found out that there was actually deep conspiracy that has gone into these crimes.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Gotcha.
So we're right on board with that, right? Okay, so back to Delaney Plaza, the day that Kennedy was shot. There was witnesses there that were interviewed that said immediately after Kennedy was hit and the limousine sped off to get out of the line of fire, that they saw men in suits walking around picking up shell casings and putting the shell casings into their pockets.
Okay.
So this was going on in the grassy knoll. There's a couple of shooters up on the grassy knoll. There was multiple shooting teams.
Right.
Lee Harvey Oswald was on I believe it was the 4th floor of the book depository inside, sipping on a Coke when the president's limousine went by.
Okay.
Okay? And this was a reliable witness statement. This is somebody that knew him by name and reported that he was in the cafeteria sipping on a Coke when he allegedly shot Kennedy from, I believe it was a 6th floor window or the 7th floor window. I forget which one. So anyways, what, you know, how do they get around being exposed? Well, the same people that are involved in the conspiracy, you put them in charge of investigating the crime. And that way they can steer the evidence so that it's not discovered that it was this huge conspiracy and that a lot of people were involved with it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Good so far? Okay. So this stuff is not theory. And I want to really emphasize that part. Okay. So time's clicking along. We get this bullshit report from the Warren Commission, this watered-down version that met this narrative. And what happened with Lee Harvey Oswald? Well, he was shot in the main jailhouse in Dallas by his friend, Jack Ruby, who was another low-level CIA operative. Both of them were.
Okay.
Okay? So, well, why did that happen? Well, because dead men tell no tales.
That's right.
Okay? And then what happened to Jack Ruby? He died in prison.
Gotcha.
Okay? So, you know, this stuff goes on repeatedly, time and time and time and time again. Okay. So back on point here. So what happened? Well, a lot of people were asking questions. You know, Kennedy was murdered in November of 1963, and in the 2 or 3 years following that, people were asking some pretty hard questions that couldn't be answered because they didn't fit the narrative.
Okay.
Okay, with me so far?
Yep.
So the CIA, which the CIA is basically just this gigantic octopus mechanism for the deep state to be able to operate, the CIA invented this term conspiracy theorist. Okay, so that's where the term originates, conspiracy theorists, from the CIA.
Okay.
And why did they do it? Well, they did it because people were asking too many questions that couldn't be answered, that didn't fit the narrative. Okay? So the CIA and other military groups, etc., have been studying for a long time human psychology. And if anybody wants to look up one element of that study, because there is so many, look up MK Ultra.
Okay. Research
MK Ultra. And when you do that, you're going to be raising some eyebrows. Okay, this is not theory. This was an actual program that took place. So the CIA and different elements of government understand the human psyche. They've studied it. They know what makes us tick. Okay?
Okay.
With me so far?
Yes, yes.
This is actually kind of fun to run this down.
Yeah.
So they understand what makes us tick, right? And so the term was invented to silence us. Okay?
Okay, so you're...
Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Aha. So they put the meme out there, and they basically try to paint this picture that we're crazy, we're asking questions that are just too far-fetched, and so we have our own mental area.
Our own mental problems.
Okay, got it.
They would probably try to medicate us all.
Yes.
Well, what does it do? What does it do? And there's a really, I don't know if it's on there anymore, but several years ago, I was watching this videotape of British Parliament, and one of the speakers that came up, a member of Parliament, came up and started speaking the truth and running it down and running how all these people are connected and everything else, and she ran on and on for a little while. And so one of the other members kind of chimed in and said, "Oh, so you're a conspiracy theorist." And it just shut her up on the spot. It completely silenced her voice, and what she was running down was really, really accurate. And that's the way it works. It's meant to shame us. It's meant to shame us. And it's meant to ridicule us, and it's meant to silence us. And so the importance of getting this information, this history on it out now is that more and more as time goes on, it's less and less successful, because people who do the hard research on what's really going on in the world really don't care what you think of them. Okay, and
That's
they
right.
don't. Me, for instance, I don't care what people think of me.
Right.
They can think whatever they want of me. It's not going to change how I am or who I am. And it doesn't evoke shame in me. Like I said, I just, on the spot, I'll just tell them, no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy researcher.
Right, and that's a real term. I like how you broke that down for us, in that a conspiracy is actually where people have an intent to commit a crime. It's on the books. It's completely defined. A theorist is basically you're trying to prove something that is real. And so
the two words together are kind of an oxymoron, aren't
yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
They really are, because one does exist, and they're trying to make it seem like we're all crazy.
Right. They want to paint us that way, and they continue to do it to this day. Okay, so the psychology and the personal impact behind shame is very, very powerful.
Okay.
And because they had studied human psychology, they knew this. And so where this thing picks up a lot of steam is that they have everybody else conditioned and programmed into doing it for them.
Wow.
So, I mean, none of us, want to be amongst our peer group and feel ashamed in any way, shape, or form for any behaviors, right?
Right.
So if we're talking, about things that are really sensitive like this, and somebody, chimes in, well, oh, you're one of those conspiracy theorists. It's been developed and procreated so that our own peer group uses it against us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's true.
So anyway, it's not working anymore, and I'm going to tell you, I'll talk a little bit about why it's not working.
Okay.
Number one is people like myself and others are very well researched. We're not talking from emotion or opinions. We may have our opinions, but they're based on our research. Okay,
Yep.
that's the number one thing. It's based on research. It's not opinion. And the internet has gone a long way into putting out information to people in such a way as they can readily find it on their own. So the internet has played a really, really important part in it. And so what's it doing now? Well, it's actually boomeranging on them.
Yes.
Okay. So if you watch something and the mainstream media attacks that person, or somebody else attacks them and says, "Oh, this is conspiracy theory," right?
Right.
People are beginning to wake up to what's going on, and people are saying, "Well, you know what? That person just got tagged a conspiracy theorist. I think I want to know more about what they got to say."
Exactly. It's the who's who, man. I'm going right there. I just to kind of back that up, John, is, I'm really into natural health and holistic health, and I was able to heal my body from a very serious disease I got in the military. But to make a long story short, a lot of the people who had truth out there were placed on this quack watch list. And
Right.
and I found like, wow, these are the who's who of who's actually helping people. So it is backfiring and boomeranging, just like you said.
Yes, it's a really interesting phenomena. The thing that the cabal of people, we're going to talk about that a little bit more
Okay.
later.
Yeah.
But the rulers, the dark entities that are attempting to rule the planet, the thing that they are most afraid of is the awakening of humanity. That's the thing that they're terrified of, because there's billions of us, and there's only thousands of them.
Wow. It's
And
powerful.
they're pushing the limits on it right now. It's like, like old Dracula movies and stuff that you see where, people are ready to get out the torches and the pitchforks and take care of business themselves. So anyway, it's having a huge backlash on them now, because there's people like me that have done so much research that don't really care what you think.
Love it.
And others that are in various stages of awakening that are saying, oh, yeah, well, they're attacking this person pretty hard, so they must be over the target.
That's right. Once you've been awake to it. Yep. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so all that's going on in the background.
Okay.
So when hopefully this will have, for your listeners, will have helped to shape looking at the CIA created term conspiracy theorist a little bit differently now, and to understand that it is an oxymoron, and that the two words don't fit together at all, and that conspiracy is a crime. So the first part, people always ask, they always want to know, what can we do? What can we do?
Yes.
Well, the first thing is the realization of what's going on, because once you see through it, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it. So once you see through it, and then after you're able to see through it, see the man behind the curtain type thing. Then you learn to recognize it really quickly when it occurs again. So the very first thing is realization, and that's kind of what we're after today. And the second thing is, people that are trying to put out the truth, don't take their word on anything. It's like, if you're really interested and you've got the time, do your own research.
I love
Hey,
that.
you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe Shelley. You don't have to believe anybody. Do your own research. You'll gain a lot more out of doing your own research.
That's really great. I'm glad you brought that up. John, could you tell people, because right now the meme is out there, oh, you only get your information from YouTubes, or you only get your information from memes that other people have put together, or you went on the internet and you Googled it and you found it. So even then, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, that's not a reliable resource. So what would you say to people? Where can they go to kind of get more information?
It depends how deep of a dive they want to do, Shelley.
Okay.
But you should see my family room in my house. It's packed with books. The first, I would say, in the first eight years after my awakening, I was pounding down one book about every 3 days.
Wow.
Because I wanted to know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And I read, in that interval, over 1,000 books.
Right.
So there's a lot of just excellent books out there where you can learn about things. But all that takes time.
Sure.
It all takes time. And so I think what God did for me was that God created this opportunity for me to have the time to be able to do the research. And so I view that as a blessing.
Yes. And I agree with you. And I believe that, he gives us information that if we have eyes to see, we will see it. And most people have been so dumbed down. They're like you said, with time. I don't have time. I'm trying to make a job happen. I'm trying to get my health insurance in order. I got to pay my mortgage. My kids are in college. I have to pay for all this food that's so expensive. And so it distracts us from really being able to dig down the rabbit hole. But I love what you said, is that not to trust what you say, but actually go research it yourself, right?
Yes. Yes, and once you have to understand with the internet that there is a lot of disinformation on the internet, and that the people that are really dangerous are the people that put out about 98% truth and about 2% spin.
Aha.
Okay, so those are the most dangerous, and so it's easy to get sucked in, but behind somebody who, for the most part, what they're saying is truth, but they always have just kind of a little spin on it.
Okay.
So,
and that discredits them. It discredits them, and a lot of people who are truthers, real life.
Yes, I quit following people when they do that. I quit following them. I just quit them. So when I see they're trying to spin something a certain way, I just quit them. It's like the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
So help you God.
Right.
So research is the second thing, and then when you do find out information, don't let it put you into a state of fear. Have conversations with people about it. You know, ask them questions. You know, like, I don't know, pick a subject, any subject. You know, it's like, you know, I was listening to these people talk about chemtrails and geoengineering, and I really didn't know too much about it. And I looked it up, and these programs are actually going on. You know, what do you think about that? You know, try to break through the ice a little bit, and don't be afraid of getting called names or anything else like that. You have to kind of feel your way in with people to figure out what they know. But my experience shows me that we are having an exponential increase in people awakening.
Yes.
It's exponential, and it's just increasing every day. And this is a worldwide awakening. It's not secular to the United States. It's worldwide. So these are very positive signs. And, you know, hone your discernment skills. Learn who you can trust and who you can't.
Sure.
If you feel like somebody's trying to spin something a certain way, just quit them.
Yeah.
Trust yourself. Learn to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. So, and I think that is probably the more knowledge that a person has, the more they trust themselves.
That's right.
And the more confidence they have. So, knowledge really is power.
I want to go back, if you don't mind, and I completely agree with you. I loved what you were talking about, how the CIA termed this conspiracy theory, I guess, blanket statement on people who are crazy or who don't believe the narrative, the official narrative. So they get labeled a conspiracy theorist. And what you were talking about with MK Ultra, for people to research that, it is a mind-controlled operation, is it not?
Yes. It's a mind-controlled operation, and all of us that are alive on the planet right now have been experiencing different levels of it our entire lifetime. And the primary media that they got into our homes with was television.
Okay.
And so there's wave patterns and stuff that you don't really see. They can flash a couple images that your visual senses and your cognitive brain don't really pick up on, but your subconscious brain does. So a couple of screens, and if you slow down a certain broadcast with those in them, you would see them.
Wow.
You know, and you could actually look at them frame by frame. And they do this kind of stuff all the time. So, you know, about 25 years ago, I was a captain then, and at the firehouse I was working at, I heard my crew in there, you know, watching TV, and I was working on a project, and I heard them all laughing. So, you know, whatever was some kind of comedy thing going on, because they're all like laughing hysterically, and I started thinking about it for a second. I go, wow, I haven't watched TV in months now. And that was kind of like my first realization that I had just kind of quit watching TV. I was done with the programming.
Wow.
I hated the commercials, the repetition with the commercials, blah, blah, blah. I just hated it all. So I had drifted away from it and just found, more productive things to do. And I basically quit watching TV altogether about 25 years ago.
Interesting, because, I want to piggyback on what you just said about all the subliminal programming that goes into these shows and how it's crafted in such a way to bypass our conscious mind and go straight to the subconscious. Remember when they would flash in the old movies, they would flash drink Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they've been doing it for a long time. They've gotten even more sophisticated with it. So we don't even have any recall that is going on.
Wow. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of what subliminal messages they're delivering to us, through sitcoms and through commercials and even the news, for that matter?
I could talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
I don't. It's not my area of expertise or study, but yeah, they'll do insert things to try to get you to purchase things, to spend money, to do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. I don't know where it came from, but I just got the strong feeling that I need to buy a boat.
Wow. Wow. Right.
Mm-hmm. Or search for something on Amazon.
Okay.
And then watch how quickly the background noise on your device changes, where you start seeing all these pop-ups for the item you were just searching for.
I've experienced that, and it is super creepy.
It's creepy, and it's almost instantaneous.
It is.
So they're taking the information on what you're searching for and using it immediately in other forums to advertise to you.
Wow, it is true.
But yeah, and there's a lot of really dark stuff that goes on in the TV programming. So you never know what you're getting. So I basically avoid it pretty much altogether. But there was something else I was just thinking of, and it just left me. Just like that.
That happens to me too. But I want to go back to this programming that you talked about. And ironically, the title, is You Pay for Your Programming Now. And we're actually paying for it, where television used to be free. And now, in order just to watch it, and we've all been conditioned when they went to digital, from analog to digital, and now we have to either get a weird antenna to be able to watch it for free, or we need to subscribe to our programming through cable. And what triggered that thought for me is we are paying for our programming, but not only that, when we're watching TV, we're taking it in, and I always see these pharmaceutical commercials, right, where they're playing this music in the background of this lady running through the tulips with the dog jumping up and down, and they're telling you the side effects that this medication has,
Yeah.
And so we're just so
in some
hypnotized.
cases, death.
Right. And we're so hypnotized. We're hypnotized into I better talk to my doctor. I better do what they tell us. So it's hypnosis. It's programming to believe the official narrative that drugs are good for you. You listen to your doctor. And now we're going to watch CNN to tell us when we need to be scared. We have code red, or the red flag warnings after 9/11. We were all, or I guess what was it? This red bar. We're in the red alert zone. Everyone needs to be careful. And it's so much conditioning. I love what you said about that.
It's continuous. It's nonstop. Here's the thing. I have an excellent book on how the brain works. And the most startling thing that within this book that I didn't really understand until after I read the book was that when you think about your conscious brain taking in information, conscious or not subconscious, but unconscious. So, you can pass somebody and observe what they're wearing.
Uh-huh.
Okay. or not, right?
Yes.
And so many of us are just going through our lives in this unconscious state. We're like completely unaware of our surroundings. And, you know, try and talk to somebody about chemtrails. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, dude, they're over your head every day. You haven't seen those? You know, it's because people, they've shifted the programming from television to these little devices that we carry around that are basically high-powered computers that we call our telephones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where's people's attention focused now? Yeah, just go out in public and just do a little people watching one day, and you'll see everybody's looking down at their phones. Okay, then they're doing something with their phones, or texting people or whatever they're doing with their phones, and they're not looking up. They're not looking up. They're not looking around. So all these things are happening around them, and they're completely unaware of it. But anyway, back to the book. The startling point in the book is that that's our conscious brain either working or not working. Okay, our subconscious brain absorbs 15,000 times more information per second or per minute, whatever. So it absorbs information 15,000 times what our visual senses can absorb, our hearing, and our cognitive ability to synthesize that information in our conscious brain. So that's the part they work on. So if they can flash you images to go out and buy a boat or do something else that you normally wouldn't even think about doing, and have you kind of in this hypnotic state where you don't even realize you're being programmed, then that's what drives your behavior. Does it work good for them? Yeah, it works really good for them, So, and that's the way they work on us. And it's continual. It's all around us. It's our devices, our TVs, it's everything.
And that is a really good point. One of the things that I loved what you said too during this interview was that we don't need to be afraid. If anything, they're afraid of us waking up, and so their job is to keep us in the dark, right?
Yeah, they're terrified of us awakening. And it's happening right now, and it's going to happen. I am so friggin' enthusiastic about the future. I mean, the immediate future is bound to be a little rocky yet, until humanity actually gets into a full-blown awakening and we lock some of these people up that are pulling this stuff. So, but beyond that, that will be fairly short-lived, right? So I see us in probably 2 or 3 years looking back on these times that we're in right now and looking at these times and going, oh my God, I can't believe that we were even able to live under those conditions. And that's how dramatic I see the changes being. Now, is that to say it's going to take 2 years to change? No, I think it's actually going to take longer, but the change is beginning now. It's beginning now. And so what you're going to see is you're going to start to see the signs that the change is extremely positive for humanity. So that will be on the increase, and then it will get better and better and better and better. Yeah. So I'm like totally stoked about the future.
It is exciting because there's more and more people waking up, and I love how you defined and went back into history about what a conspiracy theorist is, and it's not. We're conspiracy researchers, and to call us a theorist means we don't have anything to substantiate what we're saying. So I love and how it's connected to CIA, which is one of the largest mind control operations there is, trying to brainwash us into thinking, don't listen to that guy. He's just a conspiracy theorist. Look over here, right?
Right. Yeah, don't look over there. Look over here. Mm-hmm. The constant distractions that go on. So I'm going to tell you guys one more quick story. Oh, if you feel compelled to be glued to your phone all the time, try taking part of the time you would spend texting people or, taking selfies or whatever. Try to take part of that time that you would be glued to social media and just take a fraction of it and look something up. Look something up and try to seek out some information that will be really valuable to you. So that's one of my bullet points on things that you can do.
Hey, John, on that, and we're going to have you come back for next hour. We're so excited that you're here. But I want to say, when you say look something up, could you point people in a direction, like where could they start? If they want to start saying, hey, I don't really trust what they're saying about these trails they're spreading in the air. I don't believe the contrail story, or I want to know more. Where could they actually go to get information? Let's say they pick chemtrails. They want to research what chemtrails are. Where could they go?
Okay, so YouTube, in spite of the amount of censorship that YouTube has done, there's still a lot of really good people that are putting out videos on almost a daily basis. And then regionally, that changes from state to state because people have their own people that they follow who are trying to put out the truth. So, but there's literally thousands of people, of independent researchers like myself and others that are making these videos and, doing interviews and whatnot. And they're all over the place. So if you want me to get specific with some of my favorites,
yes,
I could.
Okay.
Okay. So SGT Report is one of my favorites.
Okay.
SGT. So it's like Sergeant.
Okay.
SGT Report, and the guy that runs that channel is very, very good. His name is Sean. That's an excellent channel. I like Truth and Art TV with Bernie.
Okay.
So Truth and Art TV, and he makes a YouTube video every day.
Okay.
And then I also really enjoy Praying Medic.
Okay.
So it's PRAYING Medic, MEDIC.
Okay.
He's like spot on. He's like just super solid. Just reporting the facts, ma'am. And I think that's what I like about him.
Yes.
It's just the facts, ma'am.
Okay.
So there's 3 there, and then you can branch out. You can branch out from there. But if people haven't been researching it all and haven't developed their discernment, that those 3 would be a good place to start.
It's really great, John. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis, and my guest is John Lord, and we were talking about really setting the stage, setting the platform, going into the foundation of what a conspiracy theorist, how it's termed, and what we really are is conspiracy researchers. John, for those who can't tune in next hour, where can people watch some more information about you? Could you tell us where they can go, how they can search for you? And for those who want to know more, we're going to just go ahead and reach out to the station and we'll get them in contact with you. But tell us where they can find you.
Okay, so I haven't been at this in terms of putting out information and doing interviews for very long. I started about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, after the NorCal fire cluster that blew through here and Tubbs fire that burned into Santa Rosa.
Yes.
So that interview, if you do just an internet search, you don't have to be in YouTube or anything else, just an internet search for exclusive interview with Fire Captain.
Okay.
That particular video that I did, my video debut, has over 500,000 hits.
Wow.
And I go in there on occasion to read the comments. And unfortunately, they scramble the comments. So it's very time consuming to look through them because they're not chronological.
Okay.
So, you'll have a half dozen comments that are from over a year ago. And then you'll start running into ones that were, from a couple days ago or whatever. But I try to get into the newer comments because every time there's a fire, there's a resurgence of interest in that video. So that's one place you could find my first video there. And then most of the rest of what I've done are cataloged in Real.video.
Okay.
And which is now called Brighteon.
Okay.
But yeah, Real.video or Brighteon. It's Mike Adams' channel.
Okay, great.
And those, if you, we were in there yesterday, and I was trying to show a friend of mine that was visiting the cache of tapes in there that I did, the videos that I did with Scott from Snafu Radio, and they weren't coming up with the different search features that I did. So what worked for us yesterday to find them was retired fire captain, and that pulls up most of the videos I've cached in there.
Okay, excellent.
Where I get into the NorCal fires in a lot more depth and talk about the evidence that I came up with, and then there's also a really excellent interview I did with Scott on 911 in there, what really happened with the World Trade Center collapse.
Wow.
So
I want to get into that. That's going to be good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that one's really good. I was really proud of how that came out. So yeah, that's mainly the two places.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we're going to take a commercial break, John, and we're coming back next hour. We're so blessed to have you, so thankful. You're listening to FERlive.com. The Ferret. I'm your host, Shelley Lewis. Come back for the second hour. More with John Lord. Some more really good information. Thanks, guys. Welcome back, John and Matt.
This is a Flat Earth News Brief brought to you by FENewsNet.com. When most people think about a bright star in outer space, they think of a hot plasma-filled sphere like our sun. It would be inconceivable for them to believe that a star like this could ever create water. But since stars are linked to the creation of life as we know it, wouldn't it make sense that both water and light come from the stars? Researchers at Herschel Space Observatory of the European Space Agency wanted to look deeper into this. They found a protostar in the southern constellation known as Perseus. It is believed that this protostar is only 100,000 years old or less. So it is very young for a star. Surrounding the protostar is a huge cloud of dust and gas, which is responsible for creating it. The observatory used an infrared instrument to detect the chemical elements of these clouds. They discovered that the clouds were made from oxygen atoms and hydrogen atoms. If you remember high school science class, then you will know that oxygen and hydrogen are the two chemical elements that make up water. And you can't have water without these two elements. So therefore, one can only conclude that the protostar must be producing
Down the
water
rabbit
if
hole.
oxygen and hydrogen are present. And this prompted the researchers to study those atoms and see which path they take. Sure enough, it was discovered that the protostar forms water. How is this possible? Aren't stars supposed to be like 180,000 degrees Celsius? According to the theory, protostars have a north pole and south pole just like planets. These are the coldest areas of the protostar, which are about 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. While this may seem hot to us, it is actually cold for a star. It is these low temperatures that allow protostars to rapidly shoot water droplets like a jet from their pole regions. But as the droplets reach space, the extremely hot gas cloud surrounding the protostar turns the water into gas. The gas keeps moving until it eventually gets far enough away from the cloud to where the temperature is cold again. Then the gas reverses itself and turns back into water. If you consider how all the protostars in the galaxy are probably doing this same thing, this explains how outer space is consumed with oceans of water. The protostars are just constantly jetting out water that turns to gas. If you consider how all the protostars in the galaxy are probably doing this same thing, this explains how outer space is consumed with oceans of water. The protostars are just constantly jetting out water that turns to gas and then turns into water again. All this water continues to fill up outer space and make it a bigger ocean of water. Of course, we still need to convince people here on Earth that space water exists in the first place. At least for now, there is a clear explanation as to where the water comes from. Of course, we still need to convince people here on Earth that space water exists in the first place. At least for now, there is a clear explanation as to where the water comes from. NASA might admit water molecules exist in space, but they won't admit that oceans of water exist there and that our entire flat plane is surrounded by it. If someone could just make a homemade rocket and travel past the exosphere, then they could discover this for themselves and a whole lot more. For more Flat Earth News Briefs, log on to FENewsNet.com, and I'm your host, Rick Lotek. Hey there, this is Flat Earth Radio Live, station production manager Rick Lotek. And I'm here to tell you about Flat Earth News Talk with Wes Stace. Only we've got him, only Flat Earth Radio Live. Join Wes Stace and Flat Earth News Talk Saturday and Sunday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and ending at 4, and then starting again at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and ending at 8 o'clock. Wes Stace with Flat Earth News Talk. Only here on Flat Earth Radio Live, The Ferret. You can catch us at FERLIVE.com. Flat Earth Radio Live.
Flat Earth Expo Aotearoa, New Zealand, hosted in Auckland, April 27th and 28th, 2019. A jam-packed 2-day, 3-part event to showcase Flat Earth and related topics, such as the Antarctic Circle and lands beyond, NASA, scientism, religion exposed, the Matrix control, vaccinations, chemtrails, political globalism and the NWO, fake news and false education, astronomy untouched, weather modification, historical hoaxes, financial systems, what are UFOs and aliens, biblical cosmology, and much more. The 3 parts include Broaden Your Horizon, a VIP Flat Earthers dinner, and a Unity conference. For tickets and contact information, phone 021-028-93402 or email admin@fenzexpo.co.nz.
or you can write them at their address at P.O. Box 51010, Pakuranga, Auckland, New Zealand 2010. Or you can log on to their website at www.fenzexpo.co.nz. The 2019 Flat Earth New Zealand Expo, sponsored by FENZ Trust and FERLive.com.
QE 2019 is coming to Southern California, February 22nd and February 23rd, 2019. Speakers will be presenting on the hottest topics of the day. 9/11, was it an inside job? The moon landing, did we really go? Scientism, has science become another religion? CBD, what is Big Pharma hiding from us? Vaccines, are they safe or are they harming our children? And no Question Everything conference would be complete without the hottest topic on the internet today, what is the true shape of the earth? The 2019 Question Everything conference is shaping up to be like no other conference of its kind. This will be the event that people will be talking about for years to come. So get your tickets for the event and the VIP luncheon right now at QE2019.com. Southern California, February 22nd and 23rd, 2019. For additional information, go to QE2019.com. QE2019.com.
And if you use promo code FEMG, you'll receive 25% off your ticket price right now. Sponsored by QE 2019 and FERLive.com.
www.ferlive.com. Flat Earth Radio. Flat Earth
Radio that makes us see.
You may not find us on your TV, because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by Brought to you by RADI.
Flat Earth Radio is a production of Flat Earth Media Group.
Asking these questions that no one ever asked before because we didn't even think about this. I think it's like God unlifting the veil, you know? He's starting to show people, look, you want to believe this? It's a lie. People are asking questions and truth is going to prevail. It's like, yeah, the biggest problem is that we're not able to eliminate questions, so therefore we can't assimilate, and you know, we're a constant. People are asking questions and truth is going to prevail.
Join your host, Shelley Lewis, every Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 7 o'clock Central, and 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis.
Down the Rabbit Hole with host Shelley Lewis. Only here on Flat Earth Radio Live. The Ferret.
Thank you for listening to Flat Earth Radio. 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 Thank you for listening to Flat Earth Radio.
Journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. 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 The rabbit hole. Deep, 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 deep. The rabbit hole. The rabbit hole.
Watch this.
You're tuned in to Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis, only on FERLive.com. And now, here's your host, Shelley Lewis.
Watch this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis. And if you were just tuning in, last hour we are continuing our interview with John Lord, who is an amazing veteran. He was in the Navy. He's retired firefighter captain. And I mean, I cannot wait to bring him back on the show again after today to talk more about the fires and his experience there. We might even touch on it during this next hour. But for those of you just tuning in, last hour we talked about conspiracy theorists, and we really defined that term and how it was given to us, and I guess basically put upon us by the CIA to make us look like we're unreliable, we're crazy, we're tinfoil hat wearing people. But what John has established is that the history really points to these are true researchers, and many people are waking up, and he gave us solutions on how we can actually combat this term that's thrown upon us. And I loved what he said, don't trust me, do the research yourself. And that's kind of where we're all headed, guys. We are getting this information out to the people. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you John Lord. Thanks so much for coming back for the second hour.
Thank you for having me, Shelley.
It's a real blessing, and I know our listeners are very interested in this next hour and what you're going to talk to us about regarding who are they? You know, this deep state you mentioned, the CIA, the people who have conspired to do this to the people in this world. Who are they? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'll break that down in just a second, okay?
Yes.
Who are they? All right, but before I do, I want to read you something.
Okay.
So, this is from the Marin Independent Journal, and this was published on December 3rd, 2018. Okay, so just, a day after I met you.
Okay.
So, and I did about a half hour, 45-minute interview with the gal that wrote this article. And her name is Lisa Krieger, I think it's pronounced, Lisa Krieger. And the title of the article is Conspiracists See Dark Plots Behind Wildfires. Okay? So if our listeners would entertain me for a minute, and after hearing me break down conspiracy, what a conspiracy theorist is in the last hour, I want to read a quote from this article to you. And she interviewed me for about 45 minutes. I broke it all the way down, how chemtrails are, exacerbating the conditions for fires, et cetera, et cetera. I just broke it all the way down for her. And of that, she published about 2 short paragraphs of that information that I had given her. Okay? So anyway, I'm just going to read this to you and see what you think, especially after what we talked about last hour. People have long reached for far-flung theories to explain shocking calamities such as the mysterious grassy knoll assassin of President John F. Kennedy and the U.S. government's complicity in the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center. Psychologists say these theories gain traction during times of trauma because they ease uncertainty. Excuse my sarcasm. Because they ease uncertainty, provide a platform for personal grievances, and focus blame on an outside group. I'm really sarcastic, aren't I? Usually a network of elites, and that's in quotes, elites, period. The suspicions are cradled by the internet, which allows people who share those thoughts to more easily connect. Whether it's wildfires, contamination of some deep state takeover, all these beliefs satisfy the need to make sense of a threatening and anxious world, said psychologist Joseph Vitriol, a postdoctoral fellow at Harvard University. So what do you think about that, Shelley?
Well, I think they're just trying to make us look crazy, just exactly what you were talking about, how clearly when we ask questions and we're questioning the narrative, that we are only trying to soothe our trauma. We don't have reasons for it, guys. It's just what happens. And people who are questioning it are getting labeled, just like you said.
Yeah, it's a great example of how the mainstream media just, takes things and frames it all within this context of how we're crazy. So that article can be found if somebody wants to read it in its entirety. If you go to the Marin Independent Journal website, you can click on for that date for December 3rd. It shows the front page articles, and you can click on it and get into the whole article and read it. But yeah, it's amazing. They're always trying to put us back in the box.
Right. And when you have people who are actually questioning the narrative, they want to bring in all these resources to say, hey, no, be quiet. Go look over here. Look, the space shuttle just took off. Hey, look, we're having, the president just died, right? George W. Bush just passed away. And so we're always being redirected, our attention. So it's just incredible to have this timely article that you just mentioned. Is exactly what you were just talking about. And they even used the grassy knoll example you were just talking about with JFK, which is really
right.
the beginning.
And 911.
911.
Yeah.
Wow. So they're grouping us and looping us into these, hey, if you don't believe what we tell you, then you're just traumatized and you're just trying to make it up. And of course, he's a psychologist, right? To make us all believe we're crazy. Wow. Yeah, great article. Thanks for sharing that, John.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, so John, go ahead.
You ready to roll?
I'm ready to roll. Let's break this down. I think a lot of people want to know, we talk about they. Who are they? And then if we have time, I would love to talk about the NorCal fires if you have time, and then the 911. If not, we will definitely have you back for a later show.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do a show with you anytime you would like.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
I'm at your disposal, Shelley.
Yay! I love meeting truthers. You have no idea. I feel like I've just connected with my tribe.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's happening every day. It happens every day. Just additional connections and synchronicities, we call them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just amazing what's unfolding on the planet.
Yes.
So, yeah, like I said, I'm really excited about the future. Not to say getting there
will be easy, right? But just
be easy.
But the people waking up to truth is people are waking up in so many numbers, and as we get the word out, you can't stop truth. There's going to be people, like you said, the danger people, where they'll give you 98% truth and then 2% of a lie, which is ultimate deception, right? Because you believe them, and then all of a sudden they just throw you this curveball and you throw the whole thing out. But I love, too, what you said, that, there's this great awakening, and our show, we talk about the Bible a lot, and how the Bible says that knowledge shall increase in the last days, and that's what we're seeing, John.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, there's tenets of this all within the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Okay, John, so could you tell our listeners, as we're developing this conspiracy realism, I would say, researchers, we always talk about they. They're trying to keep us. They're doing this. Could you tell us, and let's define who they are?
Okay. Defining them is a little tough, Shelley.
Okay.
So, but I get asked that question all the time, and I was telling Shelley before we started taping the show that as fresh as a couple of days ago, one of my neighbors, she was asking me about how it went up in Paradise, and I was talking about it a little bit, and she kind of looks at me and she says, "John, who are they?" And so that question comes up a lot. And so I think that based on what we did the past hour is really a good thing to talk about. Who are they?
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
So keeping in mind that we are conspiracy researchers, there are principalities on the earth that are talked about in the Bible that are very ruthless forces. So we could break it down into light and dark. Okay. So the contrast, the duality that exists in our reality, light and dark, good and evil. Okay, so you can call it all kinds of different things, but basically it's these two opposing forces. And humanity has been under a state of continuous control for at least the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. And the control has increased. Technology has allowed the control to take more and more power, and the people, there's two sets of people. There's basically people that love God and love Jesus, and or whatever tenets they subscribe to, but they love goodness. They love the light, and they just want to be left alone. They want to be free. They want to be able to have their children, raise their children, so that their children have a better future, a better life than they even had. People just want to be left alone. And then there's the other people, which we'll start by calling them the elite, because that's what they call themselves. They're the elite. I view them as something completely different. I don't think there's anything elite about them. I think they're evil. But there's this whole subculture of people that don't believe in God or Jesus and don't believe in humanity. They view us, Michelle, they view us as sheep. They call us names like worthless eaters, and they view us as their possessions. Okay? Yes. That's who they are. Now, what they do is there's different groups, okay? So there's kind of some main controllers that are very shady, very dark, very behind the scenes that you never really hear about. And they're sort of the controlling factions on the planet. And then there's the middle managers. So when you think about people like Hillary Clinton and Obama and the Bushes, those are the middle managers. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, those are kind of the middle managers. So they're still really not at the top of the pyramid, but they all play their parts. And these people use every negative tenet that you could possibly imagine to maintain their power so that they can move up within the power structure. And if you think about things that you detest, like being deceived or lied to or manipulated, those are their tools. And so what they have gotten very good at is integrating technology and research into refining those tools to control the sheep, us, humanity. And so one of their tenets is that they want to see humanity at 500 million people, so 500 million people. They want to see humanity at that level and maintain that level. Well, last time I checked, Shelley, there's about 7 billion people on the planet. So for them to get down to that number, that magic number, that means eradicating about 6.5 billion people with a B, 6.5 billion people. So they believe in this. And why do they believe in it? Well, they believe that some of us are useful because probably most of the elite they're very good at deception, manipulation, and lying and murdering and all the other things that they do. But I seriously doubt any of them would have the skills to even be able to change a burned out light bulb in a lamp. See? So it's an interdependency where they view us as being, basically lower than whale shit, but they don't have the skills to even do simple things. Could you imagine an elitist trying to re-roof a house? They wouldn't know where to start.
Right.
And they're not used to doing sorts of physical labor because they just hire it out. They get one of the, they just sub it out and get the sheep to come in and fix their house for them, or if they have a plumbing problem, they call a plumber. They don't have basic skills of survival, so they kind of rely on us at the same time. And what they're trying to do is reduce the number of people on the planet so that we're more controllable. Because if you think about it from a mid-management level, 7 billion people on the planet are very, very hard to control. So they feel if they can get the population down, that it would make their job easier. So this tenet is written as the first point on the Georgia Guidestones, and you can look that up on the internet, the Georgia Guidestones. So I believe in the 70s or late 70s or early 80s, they were conscripted by an anonymous person using a pseudonym for a name, and they conscripted this marble cutting company in Georgia to carve these great big monoliths to a certain certain size and dimension and positioning and all that. And the first tenet on there is this one of reduction of humanity. So it's been out there. It's been out there for a long time for everybody to see. So those, I believe there's 10 tenets, and most of them sound pretty good, kind of pretty flowery and good, which is, to preserve the earth, which they don't do at all. They don't do that, but I guess they want us to. So a lot of the things are pretty flowery, but getting past that first one is a little bit tough. So they put it right out there in our face, and this property in Georgia was purchased outright, and then they installed these guidestones. And if you've never looked at the images of those or, read the tenets of what's carved into them, they're in multiple different languages, including 3 ancient languages, basically ancient, sort of obsolete languages. But all the different languages say the same things.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah, so, I don't view these people as some of my friends think they're incredibly smart. I don't use that word to describe them. I don't see them as being particularly intelligent or smart. What they're really good at is working together. So when you look at a big disaster like the World Trade Center collapse, if you jump to one conclusion and say, "Oh yeah, they blew it up because of this," you're not over the mark yet, because there is always multiple agendas that get satisfied. Okay, it's the same thing with JFK, same thing with 9/11. There's always multiple agendas that are playing in concert. And so when I think about who are they, it's these so-called elites that are all about deception, all about manipulation, and all about cooperating with one another. Okay? So we have, have to get into specifics of who they are, well, many of them, one of the things that they do is they infiltrate everything. Everything, Shelley. Even down to the most basic, sacred, time immemorial type institutions. They've infiltrated our churches, all levels of government, all organizations, and they didn't even leave the Boy Scouts out of it. The Boy Scouts have been infiltrated by these same forces. And so, you know, they're like a parasitic infection that needs a good healthy dose of antibiotics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I hear what you're saying. If you don't mind, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to go back to one of the statements you said. You know, who are they? But where did they come from, John? Where do they come from?
That's a little harder question for me to answer. But basically, just in the United States alone, well, number one is these people, these entities, let's call them, are all over the planet.
Okay.
Okay. And they've been at this for a very long time. They've been controlling humanity in different ways for thousands of years. They rewrite history so that the history that we know of in you know, in terms of modern day history and past history is nowhere near the truth. So they rewrite history to cover it all up, and they're all over the planet. In the United States, the infiltration in the United States began to take place right as the ink was drying on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
So it began right away. And by the mid-1800s, they had substantially infiltrated the United States of America and began to methodically undermine the Constitution and pass laws that were unconstitutional, et cetera, and, you know, get offices of power and all that. And that's what the Civil War was all about. The Civil War was actually caused by these same forces that we're dealing with today. So they incited it. They incited it.
Incited.
So
yeah, so they do, like, if I can kind of summarize that, they create this crisis, and then they have this solution that actually ends up hurting us more in the long run anyway. Is that what you're saying too, with this inciting the Civil War?
exactly, it's called problem action solution. So they create the problem, and the public reacts to it, and then they all have this. They have the solution already neatly bundled up. Hey, well, we can prevent this from ever happening again. Here's the solution. And the solution is always about further enslavement and giving up our God-given rights. So, classic example on this, World Trade Center.
Yes.
What did you see roll out within one or 2 weeks after the World Trade Center?
It was the Patriot Act.
The Patriot Act.
Yep.
It's already written. It's already written. They didn't have to develop. They had it already. It was laying in waiting. And this is going to save us from terrorism. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have to make sure this never happens again. We're going to have to institute some things. So Homeland Security came out of the Patriot Act, TSA, which, you know, I mean, I view it as an insult to my liberty.
Sure.
To have to go through TSA. So right now, I'm boycotting flying until we change this. I just boycott. My last experience flying was just so unpleasant with, you know, having to go through customs and all this crap, you know, and have people root through your luggage, and, you know, it just was so unpleasant that I just decided, you know what, I'm not flying again.
Wow.
Not until this is fixed. So that's a little bit about who they are.
Okay.
So, let's talk a little bit, Shelley, about the underlings. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I thought of this example the other day, and I think this is the best way to describe it, because they are so dark in what they do and how they operate that two of their main tools for controlling people that are within power positions are blackmail and bribery.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple different examples, okay?
Yes.
So let's say you're, a God-fearing Christian, red-blooded American, and you think that by getting into politics, you're going to make a change, okay?
Okay.
So this is a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington story. So Mr. Smith, the person I just described from small-town America, thinks that he's going to go to Washington, he's going to make a wholesale change and make a difference. So by the grace of God, he gets elected. He's a good person. He goes to Washington. He truly believes that he's going to make a difference. So he shows up there as a freshman senator, and right away they start prepping him, kind of grooming him, right? And so, we'll show you the ropes on this stuff. We've got all the experience, we've got all the power, we know the players, blah, 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 right? So they start inviting him to parties. And he thinks, wow, this is really cool. I'm meeting some really powerful, important people. I'm going to build my connections, and I'm going to really make a difference. So I started inviting him to parties, and, he's not much of a drinker, right? Maybe he has a cocktail once in a while. And by and by, he goes to a party and has, 2 or 3 cocktails. They keep bringing him cocktails, so he's pounding down some cocktails, and pretty soon they slip him a Mickey. And his last recollection before he wakes up is of being at this party. His next recollection is waking up in bed with a child, and there's photographs that are laying on his chest.
Oh my God.
Of the whole dirty deed. Okay.
Wow.
So they drug these guys, and they get them into these compromising positions where they have evidence on them that they obviously wouldn't want other people to know about, and then they begin to use them slowly at first, and then they ask more and more of them, and more and more and more, and that's how they pull these people in. And the second thing that goes on is this example. So think if you're say you're graduating from a pretty prestigious university somewhere in the United States, and you're very bright and you're very adept at what you've been studying, okay? And so, you get offered this job, and, you're young, and, you want to live the American dream. You want to get married and have a nice home and have children and all that. And all of a sudden, these corporations, are grooming you. They're trying to recruit you to come to work for them because, you're good at what you do. You're brilliant. So you decide to go to work for one of them. And all of a sudden, you're in the big bucks now because you're making $250,000 a year or more. Okay, so $250,000 a year. Well, what are you going to do with the $250,000 when your vision is to buy a nice house and have a family, get married and have a family? Well, you're going to buy the nice house, right? You got all this cash flow, so you do that. All right. So what have you just done in doing that?
Well,
what have you just done?
You just basically set yourself up to want to keep having to get bigger and better things, and now you're locked into this mortgage that maybe if you don't keep it up, you're going to lose everything.
Okay, you're dead over the target, Shelley. Okay, so now you're locked into this 30-year mortgage on this expensive home, and the corporation you're working for wants you to do some things that you wouldn't normally do,
right?
Because they're questionable ethically. They go against your morals and your ethics. But guess what? You bought this house and you got the big mortgage, and you're going after the American dream, right?
Yep.
So they got you.
They
got you
locked you in.
because
Yeah.
if you don't do what they want, you're going to be out pounding the pavement looking for work.
Yes.
And depending on what's happening with the economy, you don't necessarily want that. So that's how these people work, and that's why we have to be really careful to stay away from judging people, because a lot of these people that get hooked in to they're actually very good people. They've just they've been exposed to a certain set of circumstances that allowed them to be compromised.
Interesting. I'm really glad you said that and defined that, because I can see that even with medical doctors, they probably have very good intentions of helping people. And I'm not saying this against all medical doctors, but, they're locked into this pharmaceutical way of treatment, and they can't step outside that box. If they do, they'll lose their job, all the money. They have kids that are probably going through college. And so I see this at different levels.
Yes. And it's been shown to us time and time again, they'll literally destroy people. They'll destroy their lives. They'll destroy their future. They just destroy them. They're relentless. They don't seem to have a soul. That's why I call them entities, because I'm not even sure that the real evil hombres are even human. I'm not absolutely convinced of that based on my research. So, but they don't seem to have a soul. They don't have any compassion for human beings. These are people that can order the destruction of 500,000 people and sleep just fine that night.
Wow. Can you talk about that? You said in your research, you think it's possible that they don't even have a soul, and then based on the fact that, they can just let this thing happen and they move on to the next thing.
Yeah, they just move on to the next thing.
Wow.
Yeah, well, what it gets back to is that when you really start to dig into this stuff, is that there are secret societies, and there have been secret societies throughout recent human history, which is the last 2,000 to 3,000 years. So these secret societies are there, and well, what do they do? Well, they have secret meetings, secret handshakes, and all that stuff. Well, no, it's much, much more nefarious than that. They hold information very close to the chest, and the people in the lower levels of those organizations, those secret organizations, don't have any idea what's going on at the top. But once you rise to the top, you've gotten a lot of the secrets of how to control the human race. So these different organizations, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, all of them, it's very, very easy to find information on these groups. And then there's some older ones that were taken down and merged. So, but it's all about control. And that's what they're all about. They're all about providing a control faction for humanity to keep us in our box, keep us from getting out of our box. So, did that answer your question there?
John, that's really great. I've learned so much from you about kind of the big picture and how we can connect the dots. And I want to know if we can actually touch a little bit. You're a firefighter, and I would love to hear kind of what you saw happen at 9/11. That is kind of a big awakening moment for a lot of our listeners, these truthers out there. I hear all the time, 9/11 woke me up. I finally started questioning the narrative after 9/11. So could you give us your kind of take on what happened at 9/11, and especially from your perspective as a firefighter?
I'm embarrassed to say that I was buying the narrative on 911. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I was buying the narrative. Because you know why? because I could not wrap myself around the idea that elements within our own government could conspire to do something that heinous. So this was in my pre-awakening phase. I was busy being a fire captain and, working on a lot of different projects and all of that stuff. There's a lot going on in my life at that time. And I was not awake. And it took me to, I think my awakening really began after Obama's first term. I think when Obama got elected, offering us change. Oh, we represent change. Well, it's probably the only thing he didn't lie about. He brought us change all right. It's not the change we wanted, though. So I began watching politics really closely, and then about 9 or 10 years ago, I got some information I learned about the FEMA camps that have been built for us. They were built for us. I think they're going to be used for other things, though. So I learned about the FEMA camps, and I went into a deep state of depression for a couple days. This is right before Christmas. I learned about these things. And so I was up that night Googling them, and went into this deep depression. And when you do the type of work that I did through my career, we see some really nasty stuff, and so we're pretty good at rebounding, and that's what I did. And then a couple days of depression, and then I rebounded, and I said, I want to know what the hell is going on, and that began my research phase. So that really was the aha moment for me. I had slowly began to wake up by watching the political scene, and then when I found out about the FEMA camps, I started digging, and I was like, that's when I was doing all the voracious reading, and learning about all this stuff. So, yeah, that's a little bit of background. But yeah, I'm ashamed to say is that I was buying the narrative initially, but that's where a lot of us are at, We're taught, we're conditioned, we're programmed to believe these people, these officials that come up with these stories. Now, in our last segment, we talked about the Kennedy assassination. So how would you classify that, Shelley? Would you classify that as solved or unsolved?
I mean, for those of us who've studied it, we kind of know what happened. But for the majority of Americans, it's kind of one of those unsolved mysteries of what really happened to JFK, right?
Yeah. So, and you're exactly right. You put it into kind of a couple categories there. For those of us that have taken the time to research it, we know what happened. I don't need some kind of official government declaration to understand what happened. I already know. But for the majority of the population, here we are on November 22nd was the 55th year anniversary of JFK's murder. 55 years later, we still do not have the straight answer.
That's right. And so could you maybe give us your idea, what you've researched about why did they want JFK dead?
Which reason?
Yeah, why did they want him dead? Like, could you maybe unpeel I'm sure there's multiple layers, but could you give us a few ideas of why they wanted him dead?
Yeah, not being really prepared for that question.
Okay.
I'm bound to miss some, but yeah, I can rattle some right off the top of my head. Did you know that JFK already had ordered the printing of a U.S. Treasury note?
Okay.
And that those had already been printed up, and some of them were actually in circulation. A U.S. Treasury note per the Constitution, and it was based on precious metals for its value.
Right.
Okay, did you know that one?
Well, I know it had something to do with the Federal Reserve and the banking and trying to
Right.
back it by gold.
The Federal Reserve is not a federal organization. It's a private banking institution, a corporation. There's nothing federal about it, and the currency that we're using today that we call the dollar is a fiat currency. And fiat means that there's no basis to it.
Right.
It's just, it's
not
as long-
backed
as
by
long as
anything.
as long as people place value in that flat money, then it has value to the bankers because it affords them to make huge profits by loaning it to us.
Gotcha.
So, okay, so that's one reason is Treasury notes. The other thing is that in Texas, primarily in Texas, the globalists, the cabal, they type people had managed to put through a law that was on the books where if you had an oil well and the oil level was putting out, XYZ output, as that oil well started to decline in production, the federal government was paying the difference between the decline and the original output. So basically, it didn't matter if your oil well was putting out 2 or 3% of what it did initially because the federal government was paying the difference on it. Okay, and Kennedy wanted to repeal that.
Gotcha. So,
okay, so there's two reasons.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Then the third reason is that Kennedy had made it apparent in public statements that he wanted to tear the CIA into 1,000 pieces and cast those pieces to the wind.
Which is
huge. He was very threatening to the CIA. He wanted to see the organization abolished.
Wow.
Okay.
And that's
that's the third reason. It's probably easier to list the reasons they didn't.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So then let's see what other ones were in there. Oh, his military, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had very heavy cabal infiltration at that point. And he wanted to get rid of all them too. He fired Dulles, and Dulles hated his guts.
Mm-hmm.
Hated him. Dulles was another big cabal globalist. So the Joint Chiefs of Staff were against Kennedy. Dulles was against him because he had been fired, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to take America to war in Vietnam, and Kennedy wanted nothing to do with it. So there was that, and then there's the whole Bay of Pigs thing that happened with Cuba. The CIA was trying to incite war with Cuba, and Kennedy wouldn't have anything to do with that, and managed to defuse that by working directly with the Russian leader at the time. So, there's multiple reasons that they took him out, and I probably didn't even cover them all, but that's quite a few of them there. So, but this brings home the point that I made earlier about you can't just look for one reason, because there's always multiple agendas that are playing out. So a lot of agendas were satisfied in taking the president's life.
I cannot express how much I can agree with you on that. I love how you connected the dots and how, there's multiple reasons why people get compromised and how they get sucked into this good versus evil, the evil side of they who want to control and have dominion over people. They use money, they use threats, they blackmail, like you said. And so sometimes you're right. We can't just completely go off and say, oh, you're get sucked into their circumstances, or they're born into this this bloodline of evil, right?
So the 13 families, there's 13 bloodlines. And, you know, because I get asked this question a lot too. It's like, you know, not only who is they, but, you know, why would they do this?
Yes.
Because it's incomprehensible to wrap your mind around some of the stuff that they do. So these 13 bloodlines, they go back a long way in history, and they're very careful to interbreed in such a way as where they don't dilute the bloodlines. They just keep marrying within the bloodlines. So elitists don't marry for love. They marry for other purposes, but generally they're trying to procreate the bloodlines and keep it as pure as possible. So they don't like it when an outsider gets in, you know, through a wedding or whatever. So the marriages are pretty much arranged, and what they're doing is they're trying to protect that bloodline, and all of those bloodlines share a similar goal, and that's to control humanity and to gain as much wealth and exploit people as much as possible. So when I called them entities, and I said that I don't believe that many of them are human, I really meant that. And that would have to be a whole nother topic of discussion, because that one would take probably hours to break down. But there's something inhuman about them, because one of the things that is so precious with being human is our ability to experience emotion, and not just positive emotions, negative emotions too. Emotions like sorrow, you know, and grief, things like that. So we have a very large spectrum of emotions that we experience, and these people that do this stuff don't seem to have that at all.
Any empathy or sympathy for others, and love and caring.
No, it's just not there.
Wow.
It's just not there. They view us as being useless, and they're subjects that they can do anything they want with.
Wow. John, our time is almost up. I could talk to you forever. There's so much information. I want to dig down the rabbit hole, and I really want to thank you so much for coming on my show and giving our listeners an overview, teaching them how to connect the dots. In our last few minutes, I always like to end with, what can we do? How can we, what's the good news? How can we wake people up? And also, more importantly, how can we find out more information about you? For our listeners, you can always contact the show, and we will get you in contact. We will get your information to John with any questions. But can people find you somewhere on the internet?
We talked about last segment. My videos, most of my videos are on Real.video or Brighteon. So there's probably, I think, a half a dozen videos that I did in there. So that's the best way to watch more of what I've done. Remember, I'm pretty fresh at this. I've only been I started a year ago doing the online stuff and making videos.
And you're taking the world by storm, because your one video, which you should I highly encourage everybody to Google or go to thebrighteon.com and Google retired firefighter captain, is the whole geoengineering. That's 500,000 views. That went viral. So that's powerful. And I just scratched the surface. I barely got to talk to you about everything. And
I know. The time just goes by so fast. There's so much to talk about. But I do want to answer your question. Do I have time?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
What can all of us do?
Well, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So what all of us can do is pray. Pray for those people who, what we call the white hats, the people that are really trying to make a substantive change on the planet. Pray for the patriots, pray for victims, pray for anybody that's suffering. So praying is very powerful, very, very powerful. So don't think it isn't. The second thing that we can do is do more research. You know, pull yourself away from whatever you're doing and just take a few minutes every day and start learning a little bit more. We talked, about a couple of specifics in the last segment. And learn to trust other people. They call it trust and verify. So if you're listening to somebody like me, you don't have to automatically give me all your trust, but understand that I don't have any incentive behind putting this information out, and doing this interview with Shelly. There's no incentive to me. I'm just trying to put the truth out there to help wake people up so they can see what's going on. So learn how to trust people that really are, trying to keep your best interests in mind. Expose evil, expose it. Wherever you see it, expose it. Call them on it. Because these people, they fold like a cheap suit. So, and resist. And the best stories on this is I boycott stuff. Is I don't like something a corporation is doing, I boycott them. That's it. I'm done. You won't see me in your store again. And look at the effect it had on the NFL last year when they were kneeling during the anthem. We're talking stadiums that were not even anywhere near even partial capacity. People just said, that's it. You want to disrespect the flag and the country? I'm not going to patronize you. So people quit showing up. So the power of boycott is really, really good. You don't like something, you don't like the fact that Target wants to let a person into the girls' bathroom, a male into the girls' bathroom because they feel like a female that day? Don't shop there anymore. Done with you. Okay. And stay current, keep up with what's going on. Keep your feelers up, your antennas up, and stay current. And this is really so important. This last one, love each other. Love each other. If we start spreading love and manifest out into the universe what we want the future to look like, it will become a reality. Help each other. There's so many people out there that need help right now, and it just keeps getting worse with these disasters that they engineer. So look for ways that you can help one another and cooperate with one another and be loving. Even if somebody's rude to you or says terrible things to you, just smile at them, say have a nice day, and just walk away. So that's some positive things that all of us can do. Learn to cooperate.
John Lord, we are so thankful you are our guest, and I absolutely cannot agree more. Love will actually change people. Prayer changes people. We see it. And I just want to thank you again so much for being on Down the Rabbit Hole. You're listening to FERlive.com, The Ferret, John Lord as our guest. And are you going to come back? Will you come back on our show?
I'd love to, Shelly.
I would love
Thanks so
that.
much for having me today. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and your listeners.
Well, our listeners are just so thrilled to have you.
God bless all your listeners.
Thank you. And God bless you, John Lord. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep spreading truth. And everybody, take what he says and research. I love that. You're not a conspiracy theorist. When you start researching, you're a conspiracy realist. So, John, thank you again for all that you did with us and defining those terms, connecting the dots, what we can do, defining who they are. I think we are all a lot more in tune to what's happening, and it just equips us more and more to be that force of change. So John Lord, everybody, you can find him on Brighteon.com. Research him, and if you have any questions, you can contact the station, FERlive.com. You're listening to Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelly Lewis. See you next week. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Watch the rabbit hole. Deep inside the rabbit hole. Watch the rabbit hole.
Down the Rabbit Hole with your host, Shelley Lewis, has been a production of FEMG and Shadow Effects Productions in association with Short Attention Span Theater. Join us every Wednesday at the same time for Down the Rabbit Hole with Shelley Lewis.
Watch this.